Soundstripe. Welcome in to another episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast where if you're like us and you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stores, and this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs. I'm joined with me by my co-host, Dakota Lowry.
What's up, everybody?
And also Ernie Ferguson.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Dang it, I did it.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking that quote where he said, who's more foolish, the fool or the one who follows?
That was in the running.
When I heard it, I was like, that is an Ernie Ferguson quote if I've ever heard an Ernie Ferguson quote before.
The one I really wanted to do, but it was too long, is whenever Obi-Wan says that these blast points were too accurate for the Sand People, only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise. I was like, whoa, no one has ever called Imperial stormtroopers precise with their shooting at all. And then, of course, the two that I had my...
Is that anti-foreshadowing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, I also, the other two I had was that...
My dad actually said that. He's like, I think Ernie's just going to come in there and make a Wookiee noise.
I wanted to, but I was like, and then also the jaw was Houdini. I wanted to do that too, but I was like, no, I'll save that. I can just plug that in there. I'm trying to think if there's some other ones. Of course, the Force can have a strong influence on the weak-minded. That was one that popped up, and I thought there was one more I had that. Yeah, I had the who is more foolish, the fool or the fool that follows him. That was probably number two. So you came close. I thought you were going to say I was going to say hello there, but
that's not a quote. That's not. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yes,
it's in the movie. That's a quote.
Well, I always think of it from episode 3. But yes,
Ewan McGregor.
You're right. It's in the
yes,
movie.
But again, he does a good Sir Alec Guinness impersonation, I guess.
Well, if you haven't figured it out, we are in fact doing Star Wars, one of the biggest blockbuster movies of all time, and we have a Star Wars version, or no longer, right?
No longer.
Well, first thoughts. Tell me.
It was actually really good. I really wish that I could have went back and found the, I guess the original one that didn't have all of the special effects and stuff added into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things I thought about when I was watching it,
are pretty noticeable.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed when I was watching it was like, man, this is a really pretty movie. But I'm like, for a 50-year-old movie at this point now, almost, yeah, it'll be 50 in a few years. Like, I was like, this is a very pretty movie, like well put together. And don't get me wrong, like there's some pretty noticeable special effects that are like, that doesn't look so great, but you know, we're also in the 21st century.
Well, I mean, but like you said, though, I think that's the key issue is when they did the updates. I mean, you can take the 1977 and understand, okay, this is 1977.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, but then when you like when Han Solo is stepping on the tail of Jabba the Hutt, it's just, oh my! I mean, it was not necessary. It wasn't anything necessary. The only thing I thought that was positive were like the laser shots and stuff like that.
The lightsabers had color.
Yeah.
In the original, they were more like white. In the original, they were more like just like straight white. I mean, they were supposed to be blue and red, but it didn't really pop as much as it, But,
I didn't know.
One of my favorite eras we'll get to this later, but one of my favorite eras of the movie is something that was not added later. It was just something that happened when they were filming, and it makes me laugh every time I watch it. But we'll get to that later. But first off, I told you I had an important question to ask, and your answer to this is going to affect our friendship, so no pressure.
No pressure. You know how many questions I get from Suggs like this? Over the years, how many questions I've had like this?
Did You read the words
At the
at the
beginning?
beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, yes, I read it, or
This
it
is not a
was
good
read to
start.
me.
It was
I mean, I
what?
read it like I was running on the treadmill when I was watching this, so my wife read them off the TV to me, so I didn't have to focus on reading words while trying to run.
Okay,
So
I guess
yeah, I
that
mean,
counts.
yes, technically I did. I
Okay,
did read them.
well, I guess we can still be friends.
Are there people who don't read them?
Yeah, I would think that there are people that don't read
Yeah, I
them.
believe there are people that don't read them
Yeah, yeah.
because they think words, 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 words.
I
Just
mean, there's literally a scene in How I Met Your Mother when he's having his girlfriend watch this movie, and the words start, and she's like, "I'm gonna get a beer. Do you want one?" And he said, "The movie started," and
Oh,
she's
I
like,
remember that
that's
now.
just some words. I'm not gonna read that anyways." Like, I think there's some people that are like that, and I do not want to be
Yeah,
friends with those people.
so I think you could have answered this question before you ever even asked
Well,
it,
I
because I
you
think you
know
know me a little too well to know that I would skip
I
past
ass-
something like
I
that.
assumed, but you just I had to make sure.
Of course,
I
no.
was
I'll
I
tell.
was I
Even
wasn't
if I had been sitting down, like just not doing like not running at the time, I would have 100% read it.
well.
And if my wife had not read it, I would have made her rewind the movie so that she could have read it to me. Like,
I assumed you would, but I you have to. Are you good?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was scratching my ear. But for Star Wars, I read it. The other ones, Empire, no. Jedi, no.
oh,
I
they did that at
ass-
the beginning of every
Episode,
film.
huh?
all the main story ones, not the
It's
spin-offs.
just like I'm like, okay, words that I don't know.
Words says the teacher.
Yes,
Now,
I came to see
I
something
will say this.
visual. I came to see something. Not I didn't come to read the book. If I wanted to read the book, I would read the book, but not not in the movie.
Now,
You know,
I
that's
will
like
I will say this. Like, I don't remember what it talked about.
exactly. That's another
Oh,
thing too.
I
Is
don't. I have to every time I read it. I'm like, yeah, okay. I had to read it again because, yeah, I don't
no, I
remember.
didn't. I didn't read it
I
this time.
I did.
I mean, there comes a certain point though where you've seen the movie so many times though that you like, okay, like I get it. But for
Uh,
somebody like me who's never seen it and needs a little bit of like the backstory for it, like needs a little
Yeah,
bit of, setup into the world, because like
but
like I
even
haven't like I had an idea of Star Wars before this because like my little brother had like video games and stuff when we were younger that were Star Wars, and obviously like it's kind of hard to be in pop culture and go to as many like pop culture cons and stuff like that as we have, subs, and not know Star Wars references, or like to watch The Big Bang Theory and not know it, but like you know I didn't. I've never like sat down and actually known specific details. I learned a lot watching this
well, I mean,
movie.
just looking at just watching this movie, you can tell it was not set up for sequels.
Mm-mm.
And just I mean, just the way, just the format of it, and the way it was told. This was basically, if you want to see what he was aiming for, what one was a mixture of Dune and a mixture of Flash Gordon. Go
Hmm.
watch Flash Gordon. If you want a movie that we're going to give like twos, ones, zeros, the only reason why it would get higher is because it has a Queen soundtrack to the movie Flash Gordon. That I mean that's where you get from this movie is George Lucas's culmination of he wanted to buy the
Hmm.
franchise of Flash Gordon but couldn't. His influence was definitely from the book Dune also, and just that
Hmm.
kind of mishmash together. But again, you can tell, especially once you start watching the other movies, go, whoa, okay, Star Wars was not made as to become a sequel, but because it was so like anything else, is making so much money. Hey, giddy up, let's go, cash cow, come on.
Yeah, I could definitely see the inspirations from like Dune and from movies like that. I've never seen the Flash Gordon, but I,
We
I
may
just
have to do that if we want to have one that we actually absolutely want to sync, because it
yeah.
is
We may
awful.
we may have to start at like rotating. Like one pick is a movie you enjoy, and one pick is a movie. Your next pick has to be a movie you don't like, or something like that. But
Well, I know what Suggs' first pick is the movie he doesn't like.
Forrest Gump is coming.
uh,
You can feel it.
actually, I have another one in my head that we would go through. I'm not going to mention it now, but I've mentioned it to you guys before. A beloved '80s film that I can't stand,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we'll save that for another time. But anyways, Star Wars. Star Wars is a 1977 is a 1977 American epic space opera film written and directed by George Lucas, produced by Lucasfilm, and distributed by 20th Century Fox. It is the first film released in the Star Wars film series and the fourth chronological chapter of the Skywalker saga, set a long time ago in a fictional galaxy ruled by a tyrannical galactic empire. The story follows a group of freedom fighters known as the Rebel Alliance who aim to destroy the Empire's newest weapon, the Death Star. The film was released May 25th, 1977. It grossed $775.4 million on a budget of just $11 million. So, obviously, I mean,
Dude.
look, it goes without saying, everybody knows this, even Dakota, who had never seen it before now. I mean, Star Wars is one of the biggest movie franchises of all time. Probably, possibly the biggest. I don't know. I mean, when you look into it, probably is the biggest.
Oh yeah, when you adjust for inflation.
So I mean,
and longevity too.
Yeah,
and just the influence that this movie had on the movie industry, probably. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get into saying it has the biggest influence, but it's definitely top 5. I would imagine at least.
I mean that's a box office number. If that had been released today, that's a box office equivalent of just over $4 billion.
It's a decent amount of money.
I mean, again, this is what did George Lucas had American Graffiti before this, and so this kind of let him do pretty much whatever he wanted to do, And again, that's one of those things when you look at movie people, what film or what vessel let them do whatever they wanted to, and that's like Spielberg and Jaws. When Jaws became a hit, Spielberg could do pretty much whatever he wanted to do at that point in time, And that's for George Lucas. This gave him so much clout, that he could produce whatever he wanted. And then you add that on to Raiders of the Lost Ark for both Spielberg and Lucas, and now it's like, okay, these two names are going to print money, so people are opening up their checkbooks and said, "You go out and get after it. What are you going to make me now?"
Yeah, and then Dakota already mentioned this, but just the massive effect on pop culture this movie and obviously the movies after it.
This is one of the go ahead.
Quotes. I mean, from other movies, but this one too, and then characters and lightsabers, and you see it in other movies and other TV shows, and you see it. I mean, people that don't even watch the movies know who Darth Vader is, or know, the famous quote from the Empire Strikes Back movie, and then there's just so much. There's so much history and so much influence that this has had. I mean, really cannot be understated what this franchise has been able to do since this movie came out in 1977.
This is one of the things I do. I didn't. I mean, I was 3 years old when it came out, so I don't remember that. I do remember Empire. The one thing I remember from the Star Wars series, merch. Yeah. I mean, I wish I would go back and have some of the action figures that I chewed their heads off and stuff like that, because Parrish thought that we were actually playing with the toys instead of keeping them in packages. But I mean, my brother had the Millennium Falcon. He had that big old sucker. I mean, and we played with it. We had just all the different types of characters. I mean, we had the Luke that the lightsaber came out from. You push this little slide thing, and the lightsaber comes out of his arm and from his hand, and goes out there. Same thing with Darth Vader. But that's another thing about this that not just the movie changed the way movies were made, but the way it was advertised, the way it was sold. That was huge in changing films of, we can make money outside of the movie theater. We can make money by peddling stuff to kids, and peddling stuff to adults also, That's I mean, look right now. I mean, Grogu from the Mandalorian. I mean, how much money is that stuffed animal making off that people are just sitting there going, you know, gimme, 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 gimme. And again, to me, from what I remember, Star Wars was the basis for all this stuff going outside of the movie theater.
I mean, even looking nowadays, you're mentioning stuff that sells. Like, I think one of the big things is like like in Legos, like the Millennium Falcon is one of the biggest things that people want right now. And I mean, that thing's like almost $1,000 or something like that. Uh, I mean, it really is huge. I mean, here, like I said, here it is, almost 50 years or 47 years later, and it's still as big of a franchise as it was when it started. You know, and that's crazy. You know, to see a franchise that's a a is this big, but b I think has lasted this long.
Yeah.
Being able to upstand and withhold the longevity of, being able to go through a film series and being able to, still, I mean, obviously some of the actors have passed away on, but now, but like just being able to introduce new characters and continue on with that, like that's it. I think that in itself speaks for the movies in this franchise also.
I think this is a trilogy or a franchise that is familial, where
Hmm.
that you will watch it with your kids. I feel that way with Harry Potter, because I
Yeah.
read the books. Then my daughter and I started watching the films. I unfortunately didn't do this with my daughter. Watch Star Wars. I think I tried to, but she got bored with it. So I was like, she wasn't really into that. But
Hmm.
it is something though that I think that people do watch as a family, and and again, it's one of those things where
Hmm.
the reason why it's able to go on and produce these TV shows that even that are awful, like The Acolyte, it is people remember Star Wars. They
Yeah.
remember Darth Vader. They remember Han Solo. They remember Chewbacca, and they hope to find a character like that. And you're talking about any show that you watch. You're hoping you can find an Indiana Jones as a hero. You're hoping that you can
Hmm.
find a Darth Vader as a villain. People are trying to bank on trying to find that hero or that villain to be
Hmm.
able to push. That's even like Disney. Like I think Lion King was great because of the villain, not because
Hmm.
of anything else. Because it had one of the best villains in Scar. And again, that's one of those things with this franchise. Darth Vader, is iconic.
Yeah. Even and speaking back to the family thing that you were talking about, like I can remember back when Kamei worked at the mall, and there was a father and his kid. His kid was like 7 or 8 years old or something like that, and they came into the Hallmark and was talking to him, and he was telling her that they were going to the movies and stuff. She was asking what they were going to see, and it was whatever Star Wars movie came out in 15, 16, 17. I don't remember which one it was now, but he was like, he said, hey, he said like, back in the 80s, I went and watched Empire Strikes Back with my dad,
Yeah.
and now here I am in 2015 or 16 or whenever it was, going to see this movie with my kid. He said, it's just kind of one of those things that keeps giving and keeps going on.
Well, diving into the movie, amid a galactic civil war, Rebel Alliance spies have stolen plans to the Death Star, a colossal space station built by the Galactic Empire that is capable of destroying entire planets. Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan, secretly a rebel leader, has obtained the schematics, but her ship is intercepted and boarded by Imperial forces under the command of Darth Vader. Leia is taken prisoner, but the droids R2D2 and C3PO escape with the plans, crashing on the nearby planet of Tatooine. So we open it up, obviously, a great shot of, we get the words and then we go into space and you kind of see the ship come overhead, and then obviously some really great practical effects. But the whole to me, the whole biggest thing about is the beginning is just the introduction of Darth Vader, which is obviously becomes one of the most iconic characters in anything,
Hmm.
any movie, any pop, anything, movie, TV show, book, whatever. I mean, he's just that iconic. So that was kind of the big part of the first one, and he certainly makes an entrance. And it probably would look different if that kind of character made an entrance in a movie today. But in 1977 or 76, it worked out really well.
The entrance today would be at the end of Rogue One,
Yes,
what you
exactly.
saw, which was I've. This is one of those things that I'm struggling with Star Wars. The way I remember it and the way I saw it are very different. To me, this intro was like, oh, that's it. I remember it being so much bigger. Darth Vader being having so much bigger of a presence on screen. You
Hmm.
know what I got out of this was I loved the R2D2 and C3PO interaction,
Hmm.
and that it frustrated me because again, watching this, I distinctly remember Darth Vader, Darth Vader, Darth Vader, and as I'll say throughout this movie, I, I must be remembering the Empire Darth Vader because I was extremely disappointed with Darth Vader in this. The look, yes, the look has it. The oxygen tank going on, but I remembered him being more.
Well, what you get is a character that, like you said, he has obviously has a role in the movie, but his presence, his look, or whatever, his voice, obviously voiced by James Earl Jones,
Great.
it brings out so much that when they do make another movie, he does have a bigger impact in that movie because people demanded that. And that goes to show you the sign of a great character. And we get that with several characters in Star Wars. And some of them, unfortunately, do not have the bigger role that other people would like. But I mean, that's just goes to show you what kind of the world, and we'll get to the world building later. But this whole franchise, will the way it does with its characters, but none better than Darth Vader.
I t- again, the thing for me though, I loved Leia again. That's something that changed in the movie too. Some of them called her Leia,
Oh
and some of
yeah,
them called her Leah.
I was about to ask
And I
about
could,
that.
yeah, I always thought it was Princess Leia. So I don't know, but I for a 1977 movie, it was damsel in distress, and I like when the rescue attempt came about, and she wasn't a damsel in distress. She could handle the gun better than Luke or Han could,
Hmm.
And I tell you what, the one thing I love about this movie, you look at her pistol she had, and you look at Han Solo's pistol that you had. Those two guns were sweet. I
Oh yeah.
liked the way they looked. I just liked the way it was. That was nice. I liked the way it was. But
I'm gonna
also,
I'm gonna let
when
you.
we go ahead, sorry,
I'm gonna let you slide on saying she handles a gun better than Han Solo, but
it's
yeah.
about the
I
same. But I
well,
mean, she definitely handles it better than Luke does.
Oh
Good
yeah,
gravy.
that 100%.
Speaking of guns, the whole fight scene in the early between the stormtroopers and the
oh my
rebellion,
goodness.
and you have two slow droids that walk straight across crossfire and don't get touched. That is the beginning of man. These dudes can't shoot. Not even with their eyes closed could they shoot.
I thought, man, I honestly, I thought that was a just like an exaggeration,
Hmm.
like a joke. I didn't realize it was as bad as it actually was. 'Cause I remember sitting there and I'm like, I saw them crossing the hallway and I was like, are you serious? There's like eight of them, and I think there's a scene later on. I think it's later on in the movie where the group runs up to a group of stormtroopers and they're like, shoot them, and one stormtrooper gets shot, and then the other seven just turn around and run away. I'm
Well,
like, what are y'all doing here?
I think it's the same scene when they're on the Death Star when Han Solo is running, he's chasing, and then they turn around. There's about nine of them, and he stops and he runs back the other direction. They all missed, and he was almost like point blank range, and
Mhm.
he
Yeah.
missed, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Hey, but they did kill some of the rebels though. I mean they're dead. Somebody had to kill them.
Well, they're all like, again, that's they don't take them to a carnival because you're not going to win any prizes with any of those jokers.
Oh, the people at the carnival love to see them coming. That's where all the money's made at.
Oh, the meth carnies are like going, hey, 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 all right, I'm going to be able to purchase more meth tonight with these suckers.
Yeah.
Well, the droids are captured by Jawa traders who sell them to the moisture farmers Owen and Beru, Lars, and their nephew Luke Skywalker. While Luke is cleaning R2-D2, he discovers a recording of Leia requesting help from a former ally named Obi-Wan Kenobi. R2-D2 goes missing, and while searching for him, Luke is attacked by Sand People. He is rescued by the elderly hermit Ben Kenobi, who soon reveals himself to be Obi-Wan. He tells Luke about his past as one of the Jedi Knights, former peacekeepers of the Galactic Republic, who drew mystical abilities from the Force but were hunted to near extinction by the Empire. Luke learns that his father, also a Jedi, fought alongside Obi-Wan during the Clone Wars until Vader, Obi-Wan's former pupil, turned to the dark side of the Force and murdered him. Obi-Wan gives Luke his father's lightsaber, the signature weapon of the Jedi. So, this whole paragraph, everything that happens in it, is obviously probably not the most exciting part of the movie, especially if you've seen it a ton of times and you already know everything. But there's so much world building in this, and not you start with the planet and you see different species, but you're learning about the Force, you're learning about lightsabers, you're learning about the Jedi, you're learning about the the Republic and the Empire, and it's just there's so much backstory being crammed. And I don't want to say crammed because it all flows, but that you're learning, and it sets up the rest of the movie and then obviously the rest of the franchise very well throughout this everything that happens in it. I don't know how long it takes, but in this paragraph,
It's boring. I mean, the Jawas were the most entertaining part of this, and if I have to listen to Luke Skywalker whine more, that was he is Mark Hamill as the Joker in animation. Where is that actor in the Star Wars trilogy? Even in the newest part of the trilogy, I'm like, oh, he's. I'm just like, he was insufferable to listen to. But again, I love the world building. That's the thing about this movie. There are two things going on: the world building, and then the story and the acting. And they, for me, are completely at odds. I mean, I love the Sand People. I love the Jawas. I mean, if I could see more Jawas, that would make me sad, you know. But listening to Luke Skywalker talk, and even to a certain point, like Obi-Wan, is just like, okay, you're putting me to sleep. So I struggled a lot early on.
listen, you wouldn't be a happy camper either if you were his age and stuck on a desert planet. Your job is farming moisture, and your idea of fun is going to stop Tossie Station to get some power converters. That's your idea of fun. I can understand where it might not be that fun to be around.
But I do like the introduction. I mean, the introduction of the Force. I like the simplicity of the Force in Star Wars in Episode 4. As the movies go on, I think they really start to like, okay, Force. That's what we can explain this by. It's the Force type of thing. You know, it's kind of like many of the Marvel movies. Oh, science. That's how we can do this. What part of science? Oh, just science. You know, it's just like, but that's one thing I liked about the simplicity of the Force early on in these films.
If you're gonna mention the sequel trilogy, you might as well just if you're gonna call them out like that, might as well just mention them. As far as the Force going a little crazy with what the Force can do.
I mean, that's midichlorians. I mean, when do midichlorians actually get mentioned? In the prequels?
Yes, in the prequels.
So I mean, you have the three films of the original trilogy. Don't say anything about these midichlorians. And Dakota, I'll let you look up what midichlorians are, because now that is all they're talking about in all these different types of the TV shows, and then the prequels and all that kind of stuff. I'm just like,
Is that the whole Baby Yoda thing?
no, midichlorians are like the DNA, I guess, of you have these special DNA that makes the force strong with this one. You know,
Oh
it's
Lord,
yeah,
gotcha.
it's
It was
I
so. I will say about this whole part, while it is boring and it is slow, I did find it really interesting. I definitely saw the Dune inspirations in all of this
hmm
because it 100% reminded me of Dune, especially with part one and part two coming out with Zendaya and Timothy Chalamet. But like, I think I learned a lot during this, and I think that's why I found it so interesting and why it kept me so engaged when I was watching it. Because like I knew about the Force, I knew like yeah, it's something they use, but I didn't know anything about like the religion of it or whatever it is. Like I didn't know anything about that. So all this was really when I was learning about it was extremely interesting to me, knowing about all the stuff and finding out that like Obi-Wan trained Vader, and Vader killed Luke's father and the whole thing, and like like I didn't all this world building that's going on in here, while to people who are repeat watchers of this movie it's kind of boring, and I could definitely see how later on it could become boring as somebody who's seen it a bunch of times. For me, like somebody who's just now the first time seeing it, like it was necessary for what it was,
uh, it is before I go to the next paragraph. It's funny. Me and Ernie were talking about this before you joined Dakota, that we were going to have to watch what we say because obviously we know a lot about what happens in the next movies, whereas you
And I
may not
have,
know.
of course,
But
I know the big line from Empire
yeah,
Strikes
but
Back, but
there's a few things like when Luke's first talking with Ben in his little hut that he mentions, like questions he asks and stuff, and I'm like, but
yeah.
yeah, I have no clue about any of that. Don't know
Oh,
anything about
there's
any of it.
same. There's
I'm not to this far, but I'm reminded of the whole scene with Captain America. He doesn't know about that. He he doesn't know about that. He doesn't. Don't tell him. He's got to watch it. He doesn't know yet.
I got that reference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
and that's the thing. There are, I mean, we are there are some we are. This is we're trying to keep this as spoilerless as possible, and there's some things that again are
spoilerless as far as the next movies.
yeah. It's just and that's when I go back to what I originally stated early on. You could tell that this was made as a one-off movie,
hmm
and they didn't think about, which is crazy, that this was a one-off movie, and the amount of product that came off of this franchise. And now, not only the product that is based off of the original trilogy or even the prequels, but also like the books, the video games,
hmm
the
The
comic books.
amusement parks.
They're just. I mean, the new stuff that's coming out now is pulling from all of that source material. That's not just the movie, and it's
hmm
again that's what makes it a fascinating world.
Which you say that about the whole like franchising and stuff like that, and that this was meant to be a one-off movie. George Luke, and I was actually reading about this before we recorded, before church earlier, that George Lucas had such little faith in this movie that he didn't even go to the open weekend, like premiere weekend. Like he was on vacation in Hawaii with Steven Spielberg when they came up with Raiders, and like he had no clue in it. But I also didn't know that like he had entire control over the marketing for this, and was the George Lucas was the person who came up with the idea for all the toys and stuff like that.
And that's where this goes back to what both of y'all had said. The success of this film was not its acting. The success of this film was not even necessarily the plot. The success of the film was twofold. One, the worlds it built, whether
hmm
you're on Tatooine or whether you are in space.
hmm
And then the characters. And the characters will get built even more, but the iconic characters that you have in this movie, it's that's what made this movie a success.
hmm
Well, R2D2 plays Leia's full message in which she begs Obi-Wan to take the Death Star plans to Alderaan and give them to her father, a fellow veteran, for analysis. Luke initially declines Obi-Wan's offer to accompany him to Alderaan and learn the ways of the Force, but he is left with no choice after Imperial stormtroopers murder his family while searching for the droids. Seeking a way off the planet, Luke and Obi-Wan travel to the city of Mos Eisley and hire Han Solo and Chewbacca, pilots of the starship Millennium Falcon. So I want to get probably going to go ahead and go to Mos Eisley, but and real quick, I do want to say, Luke's really not that broken up about his aunt and uncle being turned into
Yeah,
skeletons.
that's what I was thinking about.
He was ready. Homeboy was ready to leave. He was ready to spread his wings. If his aunt and uncle had to die for him to spread his wings,
So be it.
bye, sand.
Yeah, they got vaporized by those Imperial stormtroopers that have such incredible aim, as according to Obi-Wan. But then we get to Mos Eisley, which is such a key part of the movie, and there's a lot going on, so there's a lot to unpack here. But first, I mean, we go back to the world building. When you go into the bar in Mos Eisley, or you see all these different. It's not just people. There's all these different types of aliens and species, and so you really. And you realize it's like a mosh pit. It's not, so it's like there's all these kind of different planets and stuff out there where that all these different people or different species live, and so it's just again bringing up that world building that we've talked about a ton already.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
which is crazy, because with this being a. Go ahead, man.
What if he's got to talk?
Sorry.
I think the effects weren't they done by Jim Henson's crew? Like the Muppets and Sesame Street. Jim Henson, I think, had a lot of the puppeteers and stuff like that. But that's the one thing too, was the creativity that they had in all the side characters. I mean, you could get lost just looking in the background at all the different characters with the way they had them.
Yeah, you really could, and it still does like crazy to me that the fact that this is, just a one-off movie. We keep saying like world building and stuff like that, but like they weren't doing it for that. They were doing this for, just a one-off movie to do just we're going to release it and see how it does.
Yeah, and then so before we actually get into the cantina, we get the famed "These are not the droids you're looking for."
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Which always makes me laugh because if it's one thing if it's one stormtrooper, but there's like other ones standing there, so you're like, I'm just thinking like, what are the other ones thinking? They've got to be like, dude, those are exactly the droids we're looking for.
Which this brings up a point throughout the movie of, again, the strong influence on the weak mind. Why didn't Obi-Wan use it on Han Solo? Are you saying Han Solo is not a weak mind? It seems like the times where they could have used it, they didn't use it. And I think there was another time I may have said thought that too, along with Darth Vader too. And that goes back to the questioning of usage of Force or not usage of the Force. But also, I'm sorry, in this cantina scene too, you see an ongoing trend of hatred towards droids.
Mm-hmm.
And it is pushed throughout all of Star Wars canon that you see that droids are just second class people, and it's really interesting how that's the choice that they did with the droids.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it somewhere in this scene around in this time frame too, where they're having the whole interview with like on the Death Star between all the commanders of the Death Star and Darth Vader?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So we go. Yeah. So let's touch on that before we go into this next important thing we're about to talk about. yeah, so we go back through there, and so this is the first. Again, you're kind of they're talking a little bit more about the Force. How it's an ancient
Hmm.
religion. Vader's all that's left of it, or so they think. And then we kind of find out that Vader is not really the big bad guy of the movie, and I think that gets lost in. A lot of people forget that about the original movie is that he's really not the big bad guy of the movie. It's Tarkin, but obviously we see that Vader has special skills, obviously with the Force choke, which again is just another iconic thing that comes from the movies.
Yeah, that's what me and Kamei were talking about when we watched that scene. Was we were like, hey, hold on, we thought that Darth Vader was like, we thought he was the big bad evil guy, like he was he was the leader of the Empire, like we were like, he's kind of taking orders from somebody, like
He is a
you know,
henchman at this point.
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty
and we
much.
realized that then. But we did. I thought the whole, which I guess coming into this, I thought that he was the leader. He was the big bad guy. Like I didn't realize he was that.
Well, back in the cantina, we first meet Chewbacca, the Wookiee, which you know, great character, and you're only gonna Dakota as you watch the next movies, you're only gonna grow to love him even more. But we meet Han Solo, which is my favorite character from the Star Wars franchise.
Easily.
Yeah.
Played by Harrison Ford, who obviously goes on to do very great things. But
Hmm.
we get to so obviously, I don't. I watched this on Disney Plus. Ernie, I'm assuming that's what you watched it on.
Yeah, I watched it on Disney Plus.
And then Dakota, I know you just bought those DVDs. I'm assuming because they're Blu-rays, so I'm assuming that
Yeah, the
means that they're the
Blu-rays.
updated version. So we get to meet what is one of the most egregious things that's ever happened in film. Why they decided to change this whole scene, I'll never understand. So Dakota, if you're not, I don't know if have you looked this up. I know I've talked about it, but have you looked
I
up?
haven't looked it up. I know y'all talked about it. Was Jabba the Hutt even in supposed to be in this movie?
No, no. Okay, so no, that's
Oh,
not
hold on,
that.
hold on. We'll get to that too. There's
Yeah, yeah, we'll get to
Oh,
that in a
because
minute.
that's
okay.
egregious too.
But okay, so when Han and Greedo, the green alien that are sitting at that table in the cantina, and he's saying, I'm going to bring you in to Han or to Jabba or
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
So you see in this updated version of the movie, you see them both shoot, and Greedo misses. It hits right beside Han's head, and Han kills Greedo. In the original,
Hmm.
Greedo does not shoot at all. Han just shoots and kills him. And
Yep.
why they changed that, I don't know. I've read that it's because George Lucas wanted it to seem more like self defense on Han's
Yeah.
part or something, or some bullcrap like that. But to me, it kills some of Han's character because he's he's supposed to be this cold blooded mercenary. No, not to the point to
Hmm.
where
Is he supposed to
he
be a cold-blooded mercenary?
yes, not to the point to where he's evil.
Uh,
Okay, so maybe cold blooded is a little, but not to the point to where he's evil, but to the point to where he's going to do what's best for him. And he's obviously in a situation where he's about to be in trouble. Greedo is trying to take him to Jabba, so he just straight up kills him. And it defeats the purpose because he's supposed to you because as the movies go on in this movie and then in the next in Empire and Return of the Jedi, his character becomes more of one that thinks about others and is not always thinking about himself. And so to me, it just kind of kills some of the lust. And not only that, but he's a smart character, and so him, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm probably not getting it out the way I want to, but yeah, this whole Han is always going to shot first.
See, that's one of those things when I watched this, I didn't realize how big of a deal it is, but it's been changed many times. Because, like you said, if originally Han shoots Greedo, then the next time, in the special edition, Greedo shoots at Han first, but misses, then Han shoots. Then in 2004, they shoot simultaneously, So, I mean, it's been changed many numerous times. Uh, to me, it would have made more sense for me, the character of Han, to have Chewbacca hit Greedo and not kill him because I have never viewed Han Solo as a cold blooded mercenary. I have viewed him as a trafficker. as somebody that's going to use his brain and his mouth and try to avoid using his gun as much as possible because, well, his mouth is better than his gun. And so that's why it didn't bother me as much. But I do see the complaint with it. I do understand that. But for me, that's the shooting first. I can understand Han Solo. It doesn't make him a cold blooded killer in my mind though, because I never thought of him that way. So I mean, yes, he could have shot first, or he could have shot in reaction. But I still think, how many times has he used Chewie to threaten to rip their arms off and beat him with it? And that's what I would have thought. Okay, you got Chewbacca there. Just let Chewbacca just like bump him in the head. By the way, did Greedo actually die? Because
he was behind
Jabba the Hutt. So all of a sudden, Greedo's still alive afterwards. That's why you don't add stupid inserts like that after you've made a movie 20 years later.
So we get the whole thing outside the Falcon, and it's so egregious that Greedo is just literally just there in the background. And also, I mean, there's actually a deleted scene where Jabba the Hutt is not even this little slug character. He's actually like just a man, like a fat man. I don't know if you've ever seen this scene, Ernie, but it puts a different.
I don't want to.
It puts a different spin on it.
And to me, this ruins two introductions. It ruins Jabba the Hutt's introduction because you hear about Jabba in The New Hope, you hear about Jabba in Empire Strikes Back, and you finally see him in Jedi, and you're like, oh man, okay. But then it also ruins Boba Fett because Boba Fett is sitting out there with some bad or just bad camera work. It looks like worse than Forrest Gump and all of his stuff, and he's just kind of standing there. I mean, Boba Fett is one of the side characters that is beloved by people, which is another reason why it made me mad that the Boba Fett series on Disney Plus was awful. That's a side note, but there was really no need to put Jabba or Boba Fett in there because you can talk about Jabba and what you owe Jabba, just like Greedo was doing, and you don't have to interact with that because you don't build anything. You don't build anything with Han. You don't build anything with Jabba, and you don't build anything with Boba Fett either. And the Boba Fett thing really hurts because he's one of my favorite characters with the least amount of screen time too.
Well,
before Boba Fett.
Before the Falcon reaches Alderaan, on the Death Star commander Grand Moff Tarkin has the planet obliterated by the station's super laser. Upon arrival, the Falcon is captured by the Death Star's tractor beam, but the passengers avoid detection and infiltrate the station. As Obi-Wan leaves to deactivate the tractor beam, Luke persuades Han and Chewbacca to help him rescue Leia, who is scheduled for execution after refusing to reveal the location of the rebel base. After disabling the tractor beam, Obi-Wan sacrifices himself in a lightsaber duel against Vader, which allows the rest of the group to escape. Using a tracking device placed on the Falcon, the Empire locates the rebel base on the moon, Yavin 4. So I was sorry to kind of go ahead and skip, or we're getting a little long here. So I went ahead and skipped to the next paragraph, which, it's funny. We're already super way into this, and we're just now getting to what's kind of the meat of the movie is the time they spend, on the Death Star, and a lot happens. To me, one of the probably my favorite parts of the movie is when Luke convinces Han to go rescue Leia. So the whole them dressed as stormtroopers going up, and
trying to put the handcuffs on Chewie too. That was
he's loose, and then he just hands him the gun.
Yeah,
and they blow everything up. And but you also, as they're walking up to the detention area, you do get a kind of a tidbit as to why stormtroopers have such bad aim, where you hear Luke tell Han, he's like, I can't see a thing in this helmet. So I don't,
Oh yeah, I remember that now.
So but yeah, we get to the detention area, and we get the great conversation between Han I don't know who he's talking to, but telling him everything's okay, and he's like, it's all okay
Everything's
now.
okay.
How are
No,
you?
no need to anybody come up here.
Yep. But then when he gets a question he can't answer, just shoot it.
Yeah.
That'll fix everything.
If quick thing, if you ever get a chance, like go like just search like Robot Chicken Star Wars. It used to come on Adult Swim. They do a lot of parody of, and there's one of this scene where he's talking to the guy. It is pretty funny. You just need to go watch it. But yeah, so then we meet Leia, and she's being rescued, but then she's like criticizing them. And then
that's great. Golly, that's
Oh,
great.
and so yeah, it's not your. It's definitely not the Princess Bride. It's not your.
It definitely isn't.
It's not being in the swamp, in the fire swamp, or whatever the heck it was called, and watching your love being eaten by a giant rat while you do nothing. It's definitely not that.
No, it's just like, you think you could shoot? Here, let me show you how to shoot.
I mean, the character interactions, first of all, with the droids, Han, Chewie, and Luke all together as they're trying to figure stuff out. That's where you start to get to the meat of the Star Wars part, And we've talked about it many times. Just the building the characters together and having them do things together. But that's where C3PO really starts to earn his stripes too, and just being super annoying and super condescending. And, as they're in the trash compactor, they're trying to get him, and he's like, "Oh, I forgot I had this off," and then turns it on, and he's too busy talking not to hear what they're saying, and it just it goes to show how, and this is one of those very disturbing things, not disturbing, very disheartening things, is how important R2D2 is. And at the end of the movie, after he got shot, how Luke looked at him and said, "Oh, R2D2, hey, there we go, yay, we won." I mean, he doesn't even get him 2 seconds. I'm like, come on, man, R2 saved your biscuits many times. You're going to do that.
So, speaking of the trash compactor in Dakota, I'll give you a chance in a minute, but first of all, how deep is that water? I've always wondered, because they're just standing in it, and all of a sudden he gets like sucked into it. But it's not like he's splashing around. They're just like, he gets sucked down into it, and they're just like standing there, like they're not even doing anything.
There's no disturbing water, no nothing.
Well, it's like the quicksand in The Princess Bride. It just goes down and you just come right back up.
And then he comes up and he's like, "Just let go of me." And it's like you realize that let go of him because the trash compactor is about to start. So then you're like, okay, does this creature live there? Like, where is it swimming to? Like, you're literally standing in 2 feet of water. How?
And why is it there? What's its purpose, anyways? I mean, it's like, is it eating things to disinfect things, or just trying? I mean,
they also could have. I mean, like, literally, if I'm standing in water, something brushes against my foot, and I don't know what it is, I'm climbing to the top of all that trash. I'm definitely not standing in the water.
I'm on top of Chewie's head right now. That ain't happening. I don't like that.
Poor Chewie's just trying to get out of
the. That's the best thing about Chewie is they talk about how mean and tough and all this other kind. He's the biggest scaredy cat in every single movie. He shows a more emotional range in some of the other movies than any of these other characters do, and that's why I like Chewbacca too.
I mean, you have to have more emotional range. The only thing you say is you yelling at people. You have to have some form of emotional range. What other acting are you going to have in these scenes?
Well, I mean, but again, there are. You didn't get to see it as much, but you see it in some of the other ones. Some of the emotional, there are different. It's not, it's kind of like Groot. Different ways you say I am Groot. Just. Have we gotten to the fight between Vader and Obi-Wan yet?
Not yet. Because
not yet. So
first off, I wanted to go through. I love talking about how. Well, I mean, we're here, but before we get to that, I wanted to mention, like, first of all, how stupid stormtroopers are. So they come into the room where C3PO and R2 is, and Dakota, you probably didn't notice this because you're not looking for it, but as they're entering the room, you have the one stormtrooper that bangs his head on the freaking pipe as he's coming in, and it's like, I don't know why they didn't take that out of, reshoot that, but they just left it in. And then he finds the droids, and they're like, "Oh, they went that way," and they're like, "Okay." let's go chase them. And then they just walk out. They're like, we're going down to maintenance.
Well, I guess that goes back to how people view droids. They're just machines. They're not going to lie. They're just going to sit there and tell the truth. Which I think that's a growth for C-3PO also. Because at the beginning of the movie, I don't know how much C-3PO would have lied about stuff. So I do think there is some growth. But yeah, it's like, hey, they went that way. You're pointing at two different directions. They go, doop, doop, let's go.
And then we mentioned Obi-Wan. He's just kind of doing his thing all stealth-wise. He has no idea that his companions are tearing up half the Death Star. But
the old man's running around, not getting seen by anybody.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah,
this dude is in wizard
absolutely
robes.
Was.
Everybody on the station is in either a stormtrooper outfit or in some kind of very tight-fit military uniform, and there's just this dude walking around in wizard robes, and you see in the background, you see him walking around, and you see people walking by in the background, and it's like nobody notices.
Why is he even hiding though? He already showed he didn't have to. He just walked. You do not see me. You do not see me. You do not see me. I mean, he could have done that because, again, weak minds. He's already used it once, I think twice on stormtroopers. So, I mean, he could there was no need to tiptoe around. He could just, you don't see me. I'm not the man you're looking for. He could have just done that. He didn't have to sneak around. I know he hadn't used his Jedi tricks in forever and a year because he's retired because of what we can't talk about. But, but I'm like, dude, I'm not here. You don't see me. Use your hand and just say blah, blah, and they won't notice you. But that's not dramatic, though.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't make for a good movie.
Yeah. But we also start to get the beginning of our love triangle in this movie, because you have both Luke and Han going, "Hey, the princess, hubba hubba," Yeah. So you have the Boy Scout and the Rogue, and again, Caleb, we can get into it, or we can not get into it. I guess that's.
Let's not.
Okay.
Because it's just hard to talk about without talking about what we know that's coming ahead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hate that Dakota's being left in the dark, but it's just kind of the way it is right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No, that's all right.
When you find out what we're talking about, you're gonna really.
Those of y'all that have seen Star Wars, if you know, you know.
So we'll just.
Oh, hold on! I think I know something about that.
Fire away. What?
Aren't they like brother and sister or something?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, they are brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
Again, so we go back to where Ernie's mentioned this over and over again, this being a one-off movie. They obviously didn't prepare for this.
No.
So it gets more egregious in the next movie than it does here.
Because I even wrote down like whenever he sees the video of Leia with Obi-Wan, she's beautiful. I'm like, oh dear Lord. And she kisses him twice in this, and I'm like, oh man, it's kind of hard to make this right. I mean, we live in the country, and people might be used to that, but this is space. That's the kind of stuff that should be happening.
Is this the Alabama corner of space? Is that what we're calling this?
No. Hey, I came from Texas. There's places in East Texas where there's a lot of pine trees where that family tree don't branch at all.
So we finally get to the lightsaber battle, which as my dad calls it, the best lightsaber battle of all time.
Goodness.
He's obviously being facetious.
It has to be.
For 1977, it's pretty.
I feel like they could have done a better job than that, though. Come on.
Yeah, I don't.
All right.
I mean, you gotta. They're trying to be more realistic because you have an old man. Now we're gonna get to some Star Wars movies later where we find out that age really isn't a factor. But
so, hold on,
we have a man that's half machine or 75% machine, and a man that looks like he's in his 80s.
Still, though, you're going to look at me and tell me though that Darth Vader, knowing he has a man in his 80s, isn't just going to immediately try to kill him, get him out of the way. Like, why is he going to stand there and toy around with him?
Again, you have to remember what I mean, y'all are passing over. I know his age, but how many lightsaber battles has actually Darth Vader been in? Because
Yeah.
again, where are the Jedi? That's again for other movies, but you know, you are talking about a major Jedi in Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's not like it's just like him throwing me a lightsaber and saying, "Go, kid."
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
so this is. I mean, you're talking about somebody that withstood Obi-Wan Kenobi withstood a bunch to still be alive. So now
No,
again, he is
I
old and
definitely
all
see
that
what you're
kind of stuff
saying.
too. But you know, that's why I like in the Obi-Wan TV series the of young Obi-Wan and Darth Vader's match and how they use the push force and all that kind of different kind of stuff and how that really worked out. But this one, that the fighting itself was not the egregious part. All right, so rewind a little bit back to me to the cantina. Do you remember when Obi-Wan used his lightsaber?
Hmm.
What happened? The dude's arm was severed,
Yeah, it was
which
severed. Yeah.
is something that you'll see in all Star Wars movies. Something happens to somebody's arm in all of them, and it's bleeding.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Darth
yeah,
Vader, Darth Vader hits Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he just poof
disintegrates.
disappears.
Yeah.
His cloak isn't singed, nothing like that. He just poof disappears. And you look at any of these other movies, when a Jedi or a Sith dies by a lightsaber, they don't go poof.
See,
And
I
and that really had me questioning if he was even dead.
well,
I mean
that's why you get the whole Vader going and stomping on it because
I mean
he's
yeah,
like,
like
what the heck just
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
I mean
That's what really made me quit because even he even made the comment. He said, "If you end me in this battle right here, whatever, like you're just going to make me stronger, or whatever." I know I messed the quote up, but like that's the thing that I really questioned was, and I get what you're coming from is like it's more paying respect to who he was and the lightsaber that he has, not the weapon that he's using, but and I question if he even died at all. I really think he just let him. It really looked like he just let him kill him. You know?
yes, I 100%, which you know I'll have to remember this point later when we watch some of the other movies. But the only other person I remember like dissipating, was Leia and then also Yoda in future movies, but so I'm like, okay, did he have a heart attack before he was hit by the lightsaber, and that's why he went poof and disappeared? But that's neither here nor there.
It's so hard when you're trying to review this as just this movie and not thinking about what comes.
Yes,
Yeah, you're not
it's
reviewing a
very difficult.
franchise.
Yes, if we're
You're
trying to
you're,
view
you're
this
reviewing an
as
individual movie, not a
Yes,
franchise.
it's tough. So I guess we'll just go ahead and skip that because and just go to the final paragraph. So analysis of the Death Star schematics reveals a weakness in a small exhaust port leading directly to the station's reactor. Luke joins the rebellion's X-wing squadron in a desperate attack against the Death Star, while Han and Chewbacca lead to pay off a debt to the crime lord Jabba the Hutt. In the ensuing battle, Vader leads a squadron of TIE fighters and destroys several rebel ships. Han and Chewbacca unexpectedly return to the Falcon, knocking Vader's ship off course before he can shoot Luke down. Guided by the voice of Obi-Wan's spirit, Luke uses the Force to aim his torpedoes into the exhaust port, causing the Death Star to explode moments before it can fire on the Rebel base. In a triumphant ceremony, Leia awards Luke and Han medals for their heroism.
mm.
So, I mean,
So
we get down. I mean, we leave the Death Star and we go pretty quickly to this final battle.
Oh yeah.
Which I did want to mention. There's a part in this, and I just don't feel like you get this in movies very often when it comes to climactic battles. But there's a part in this when they're nearing the Death Star, and it says 15 minutes till the Death Star is in range. It's
yes,
actually the whole battle is actually 15 minutes.
yes, I pointed that
Yeah.
out to my wife. When he said that, I was like, surely not. But then I kept on checking. Every time it said 11 minutes, I clicked. I was like, huh, this is actually true to time. That's sweet
Hmm.
when a movie does that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you're not
really did appreciate that, like little attention to detail.
you're not getting that in any action movie that's made
Oh
today.
no.
No.
2 minutes can be an hour if we're being honest.
Yeah.
But
So Luke uses the Force, right? To
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
We don't really know what the Force is, or
why didn't Darth Vader use the Force when he was flying his TIE fighter to shoot Luke out of the sky? I mean, derp. I mean,
no kidding.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, but there was.
It really feels like a kind of an overpowered thing that
Okay.
one person should just have.
But,
I mean, this is the strongest person with the Force, right? That we know of, and yet Luke, who just figured out how to drive an X-wing, fly an X-wing, so he's just learning how to do that. Luckily, all these pilots are flying down a straightaway as they're looking through this periscope because, I don't know if you've ever tried to read your phone and drive in a curve. That's impossible. And so, but they're driving straight, flying straight. I'm just like, come on now. I mean, make it a little more challenging. Again, Rogue One, Dakota, watch Rogue One. But, I'm like, at least make it a little bit more challenging, too.
So, yeah, I want to back up. So, we go through the whole, like, spiel of the Death Star plans, and everybody's getting ready. So, Luke, and look, I'm not saying that he didn't spend time in a speeder on Tatooine, but as far as we know, this is just a kid that grew up on a moisture farm. And all of a sudden, he's going in this, I would guess you would call it this attack squadron for this Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
And they're just like, hey, here's you at X-Wing.
And he's got a buddy. He's got a buddy that vouches for him. He said, yeah, he's the best one on Tatooine. I'm like, okay, sand speeder.
Yeah, he's the best driver in Morgan County. He's the best go-kart driver in Morgan County.
Did Luke fly? Or did R2-D2 fly?
I'm going to assume Luke fly, because Luke is, as we come to find out, a very good pilot. Now, granted, we can go through how much sense it makes that he just jumps in this thing he's never been in before and knows how to fly it. But
hot dang, let's go, son.
Mm-hmm.
But again, maybe he did definitely make sure the R2-D2 was with him, because they were like, "Do you want a better droid?" And he's like, "No, not in your life."
No, I love him until he gets shot. Then I don't pay any mind to him afterwards.
Yeah, R2 gets shot. Yeah. Like, oh, I lost R2.
Okay. Oh, hey, I got Obi-Wan in my ears.
What's so funny is when they say that he says that he lost R2, it pans to 3PO, and he has this look like, what the frick did you just say?
Yeah.
The only thing that likes me just got blown away.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, though, this whole... And I said this to Ernie before we started. The next couple Star Wars movies to me are so beloved, and I love them so much that sometimes I forget how good this first one is, because it's the beginning, and a lot of times the beginning movies aren't as great as when you're telling a big story. But this whole battle, I found, even though I've watched it multiple times, I found it very tense. And, the whole time I was like, ooh, this. And I think what helps that, we've already mentioned it, is the fact that it's literally only 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There is a very crunch against time here, because that, it's not like, that Death Star is coming to kill them or blow their planet up. So there's a time crunch, and I think that just helps add to the intensity of the whole battle. And I found myself, even though I know exactly what happens, I know how it ends, still, as leading up to the Death Star blowing up, being very tense myself as I was watching it.
It was the good practical effects again. The models of the planes and the models of the Death Star as they filmed too. I thought maybe it didn't make it look campy, which for 1977 amazed me. I mean, I could kind of tell that they were models, but it looked good.
Yeah.
Now, can we talk about the metal service?
Yes. This is one of my favorite parts, for a multitude of reasons.
When they gave the medals, Dakota, they gave the medal to Luke. They gave a medal to Han, but they snubbed Chewie. They snubbed the droid also, the one that was flying the plane, probably. And I'm like,
not only that, what about the other two that came back? Without Wedge, Luke's probably dead before he even makes it.
Luke is absolutely dead.
And so they're at least R2 and Chewie are there at the ceremony. We don't even see the other guys. Like they're just kind of in the mix somewhere.
What was
I
it?
mean,
One of the guys that got killed right before the whole Luke shot the missiles. Wasn't that one of Luke's friends too?
Yeah, like
yes,
big.
that
Yeah,
was the one
so
that stuck up for him. That said, "Oh yeah, he's the best pilot on Tatooine."
Yeah, and he Luke just didn't even say anything about that, did he?
No, or R2. I'm still bitter
Like
about that.
none of them. He's just like then they get back and he's like not mourning at all. Like
and,
there's no mourning that goes on. He's just like yeah, he'll be fine, and then he just goes on and celebrates. Like
and and also Ernie's mentioned this so much. This was meant to be a one-off movie, so this is probably my favorite instance of it's supposed to be a one-off and it ended up not being because. So we find out, they destroy the Death Star, but that's really, I mean, it's a blow to the Empire, but it's still the Empire.
Yes.
So they have this whole ceremony, and it's funny to think back now. They have this whole ceremony, and you're thinking, well, the Empire still knows where we are, but let's have this whole ceremony to award
yeah, I didn't even think about that.
and not get out of Dodge before they come and blow up the planet or whatever.
Mhm.
But
I'll tell you what. The last thing I have for this that made me chuckle was whenever Han came in and shot Darth's aircraft, and the way it like tumbled out
Yeah.
just was funny looking. I was like, that's just weird. That was just weird looking.
Did he shoot?
Yeah.
I honestly thought he like
he like
I don't
so
know.
he like shoots one, and it ping pongs Vader into the other.
Yeah.
I thought it was something like he uses like propulsion jets or something to like that's how bizarre I thought it was. I thought he'd like use his propulsion jets to like push him away or something. Or I'm knocking. I don't know. I don't know how I was trying to justify that in my mind.
But, all right, I guess that brings us to the end. Only an hour and 10 minutes to go through that. Honestly, we got through it quicker than I thought we were.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So, I guess that means we're going to ratings, right?
Yeah.
How did we decide we're doing this again? This was Ernie's pick.
I mean, I will defer to the boss. I'm just the third wheel, so.
All right. I wanted to ask this at the beginning, so I guess, but I forgot. So I guess I'll ask it now before we do our ratings. We have, obviously this is one of the biggest movies that has ever been released. As we look at our ratings, we have actually, as far as our ratings go, which is 9 or higher is a blockbuster. We have actually not had a blockbuster movie. Do you think before we do this rating that this will be the first blockbuster movie?
No.
No, Dakota?
I don't.
All right. Well, let's find out. Ernie, you go first.
Like I said earlier, I thought this movie was a lot better in my mind, but this dragged on and on and on. The characters I liked. The world I liked. The story, it put me to sleep. And ironically, to me, of all the movies we've seen, and you're about to throw something at me, this is the least best. I won't say it's the worst, but I just it's not entertaining for me, to say the least. It's okay. I can watch it. I can never watch it Star Wars again. I'll be fine. Now, some of the other ones, different stories. Again, because we'll get to one that will be a blockbuster. I can guarantee it'll be a blockbuster. But for me, Star Wars, it just Mark Hamill I didn't think was very good. I wish they would have let Harrison Ford cook some more. And so for me, I'm giving it a 7, and I just bumped it up in my head too from what I had it as.
All right, Dakota.
So this was the first time that I've ever actually watched this movie, as most of everybody knows now. I think, like Ferg said, I don't really. It wasn't just some like all out movie. I'm be honest, I'm really surprised that it made as much money as it did in the box office, and I think it has made as much money as it did in the box office just through re-releases through the years, maybe. But it wasn't a bad movie. obviously wasn't just some like great movie. But I think I was gonna give it like a. Hmm, I've been struggling with this. I think it was like a good like 7.25.
All right. Well, I guess that leaves me the biggest Star Wars nerd of them all.
Well, I I think this is again one of those movies that people truly, truly fall in love with.
Hmm.
You know, and I'm not trying to step on your numbers or anything like that, but I can see where somebody might give this a 9.5, a 10, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like my brother probably would, because my brother's a sci-fi freak. I'm not. So, you know, go ahead, Caleb. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
Well, look, I'm assuming I'm definitely a bigger Star Wars fan than either one of you. And I'm not saying that like in a bad way. It's just
No.
facts. I've grown up in this. I've seen these movies. I don't know how many times. That being said, the first one, the original, has never been my favorite. I've probably watched it, not counting the sequels because obviously they just came out. But as far as the original six, so growing up, I was born '96, so the original three were already out. By the time that I was 10, the prequel trilogy had concluded. So, out of all those six movies, I've probably seen this one the least. That being said, as I go back and watch it, I think it's better. Well, again, yeah, there's campy stuff about it, and there's stuff that's not great, but I feel like it's better than I remembered it being. And
Hmm.
maybe that's just because I'm holding it up to the next two, which I've said to me are, and I'm not going to talk about ratings for those movies, but they're really, really good in my opinion. So that being said, though, I mean, this movie launched the franchise, and it deserves credit for
Yeah.
that. But if we're
Hmm.
looking at it as just the movie, I'm gonna give it an 8. But yeah, I'm gonna go with an 8. So
So,
so it's an 8, a 7, and a 7.25. Is that what you said?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, I didn't put the period there. 8 plus 7 plus 7.25. Okay.
7.41, if my math is correct.
Okay,
You
so
know, you can just do an average. Sorry,
Yeah,
we're
I
all
will.
looking at the same
I
spreadsheet. We
will.
can.
I will do that, but I just now added our names. We have a spreadsheet, by the way, that goes on with this, and I had just been doing the scores, but now I actually added our individual scores, and
Mhm.
so I will get to the point where, yes, I'll just have it average. But right now we ain't got that way. I did that the wrong way, by the way. So I'm trying to fill time as I actually do this correctly.
So
Uh,
I do want to preface. I was going to give this an 8.5, but Ernie, you said some things that did make sense to me, so I actually dropped it
Mhm.
down.
Well, and
But
that goes vice versa too, because I originally was debating between a 6 and a 6.5, but I really didn't factor into the world building type of thing. I was so stuck
Mhm.
on the early story. Truly the first 30 minutes before we see Obi-Wan Kenobi, and
uh,
it truly was a struggle for me. I was
I
I
mean,
was watching other stuff.
we have to review it as much as we can for the singular movie that it is, but you still can't do that without thinking about what it launched as far as the
Yes,
Mhm.
franchise and the movies. That has to add some to it.
that's the hardest thing about this, is the fact that, you know, I understand what it did. I understand what it was too, and like I said, I think we'll eventually get to one of the franchises where I can almost guarantee you it's going to be a blockbuster.
Mhm.
But I've always had Star Wars as just meh. But again, what did it really for me was like I said earlier, I remembered Vader so much more menacing, so much just, and it just, and I thought I remembered Han Solo more too. But
Yeah, it just comes to the point where you're thinking of Vader, the Star Wars franchise, not Vader from
yes,
Star Wars
Yeah.
1977.
and that's the
And
hardest part. Like when we talked about Princess Bride, of taking my feelings out of it and trying to watch it as a movie. And that's a lot of
Mhm.
these things, is how much do we put our memories and our feelings into it, as
Mhm.
opposed to like literally watching the movie for what it is right here and right now. And should we? I don't know. And it may change when we do different movies too, in my mind. And is that is that hypocritical? Well, yeah, but I'm going to tell you right now that there's probably going to be some movie that's going to happen to again.
Mm-hmm.
All
So
right,
now
so-
me as coming into somebody who watches for the first time, like, I will say this, knowing that there's more past this, like, it really did make me want to watch the rest of the movies. Like, I mean, if it was up to me, if I didn't have to work tomorrow, like, I would go sit down right now and put the next, whatever the next one is. I don't know what the next one
Well,
is.
I think I said this when we mentioned we were doing Star Wars, and you may scoff at this because it seems like it, but watching the original trilogy back to back to back in one day is something I think you should do at least once. It's pretty fun. I've done it, and I enjoy it a lot.
Did you go in numerical order, or
No,
did you go
I meant the original
literal
trilogy. No,
chronological?
I've never watched all 6 in one day. I'm talking about just the original trilogy.
I'm about to say, there you go, snob wise. You said 6. There's 9. I felt that snobbery come out in you.
Well, yeah.
Which, by the way, Rogue One. If I can't say this enough, Dakota.
Yeah.
Now that you've seen this, go watch Rogue One, because Rogue
Which
One
one
is
Rogue One?
So it's a spinoff, and it takes place before this movie. It's about how the rebels got the Death Star plans.
It is.
It's
it is
extremely good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
If that was in our time frame, we'd be on that in a heartbeat. That to me is 2, 3, number 2 or 3 in the Star Wars series. Again, debate.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with it. Shoot, hold on, let me think for a second. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think 2, 3, and 4 in my head, and I'm not going to go through what they are for right now because that's a whole different spiel. But I think 2, 3, and 4 is very subjective. They can be, to me, there's one that's a head and shoulders above everyone else, but the next 3 are very subjective.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyways, all right. So 7.41. Where does that land us on our ratings, Ernie?
That puts us. This is our 9th movie, and that puts it at number 8, and in between Beverly Hills Cop and Princess Bride. Which I laugh, but I enjoyed Beverly Hills Cops more. I did. And here's the ironic thing is, on Rotten Tomatoes, the top 2 movies that were rated, Princess Bride was number 1 at 96, and Star Wars, tied along with Raiders of the Lost Ark, was 93%. So those happen to be our bottom 2 with so far.
Yeah,
so,
we're definitely not. We're not super highfalutin film critics. That's not who we are.
So I'm not looking at the camera angle and treating his life as a metaphor or anything like that.
All right, category. Let's see. Just quickly go through. On Blockbuster is 9 or higher. Popcorn worthy is 8 to 9. Cult classic is 6.5 to 8. Straight to video is 5 to 6.5, and below 5 is below 5 is straight to video, and 5 to 6.5 is crap. Matinee only. Okay. So that lands us 7.41. That lands us at another cult classic.
Yep.
That seems to be our most popular. Actually, no, we might have more popcorn.
Popcorn has one more.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So that was Ernie's pick. The next episode will be my pick, and I guess I need to make that pick right now.
Yeah.
I tried to get Dakota to help me make it, but he was not willing to.
He said, be a big boy and make your own choices.
I am going to go with, I'm very torn. I have 2 in my head that I want to go with. Is that what you think I should go with?
That's what I think you are going with. I don't know if you should go with it or not.
I was going with that or the comedy that I discussed, and I can't decide which one.
Bring it.
All right, so next maybe we'll go. We'll go.
Shouldn't be that painful.
We'll go Mask of Zorro next movie.
Mask of Zorro.
Mask of Zorro.
Antonio
Right.
Banderas.
More importantly, Anthony Hopkins in the movie.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Catherine Zeta-Jones, but
That's important.
go ahead.
Too.
Go ahead and be the bigger person.
But all right, well, guys, anything to add?
That's it. Just
Yeah,
I'm good.
we apologize if you thought this was going to be a series where we did all three original Star Wars in a row, but
no.
we're not doing that. We got to keep you on edge, so you'll get to come back. But anyways, if you listen to our episodes, I think every single episode we've done so far has gotten a double digits. I think I'm pretty sure I looked at that today. So we 143 total listens, around 9 episodes. I don't know what that averages out to, but we appreciate everybody that's listened.
Thank you for the support.
Yes, if you want to leave a review, do, but only if it's a 5-star. And come back next week. All right, guys, we good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.